Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. I just wanted to share with you a real quick thought that I had on Paul's letter to the Philippians today. We've been spending time in it. We're in a series called How to Do That, where we've been asking the question, how did Paul do it? How did Paul have such joy and such contentment in all of the bad circumstances that he faced in his life? And we've been looking for tips throughout his letter to the church in Philippi and how we could have some joy in our circumstances, whether it be the COVID-19 quarantine or something else in our life that just isn't going the way we want it to. And as I was reading through Philippians today, I just am struck by how confident Paul is and how much joy he appears to have and how content he seems to be. And honestly, I was just like, oh my word, are you kidding me? Is he really that content? Is he really that joyful in these circumstances? Or is he just faking it to try and encourage a church in Philippi that was struggling through a difficult ministry or a difficult time? Was he really that content and that joyful? Did he really feel that way? I don't think he was faking it, honestly. But I also don't think that Paul was telling us about his feelings, because I think that Paul's feelings are just like ours and that they were all over the place. Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 is not content and rejoicing. Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 is a guy who says he's despaired life itself and that he sounds depressed. But he still says that he has found his hope in the one who has raised Jesus from the dead. And he still is grounded in that truth of the resurrection of Christ. Last week when we were looking at Philippians on Sunday morning, the statement that we kind of ended with in Philippians chapter 1 was where he said that he will rejoice. Verse 18, yes, and I will rejoice, he says. He says, because I know that all of this is going to turn out for my deliverance, whether it be through my life or through my death. Jesus Christ is going to be exalted, and that's what he was finding his confidence in. Well, Paul goes on in Philippians, and it's the verse that stood out to me today. It's verse 21 where he says, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Whether the authorities decide to take my life or they let me go, I'm good. In fact, he recognizes that for them to take his life, he'd probably be better off. He'd be better off dead, because he knows that when he leaves this life, he gets to go and be with Jesus, the one that he is passionately pursuing. And he says, so I know that death is gain for me. Death is better for me. It would be easier because he wouldn't be in prison anymore. He'd be with his Savior. But he also recognizes that he's got a job to do, and he's got to be in this current set of circumstances to do what God's asked him to do. So to live is Christ. To live is to do what Jesus has called him to do and to allow Christ to be exalted in his life. And so when I look at Philippians, the thing that struck me today was that Philippians isn't a book about Paul's feelings. I don't think Paul was saying he felt joyful. I don't think Paul was saying he felt content. He was saying that he has chosen to be joyful and content. I think Paul is talking about his beliefs. Paul's feelings are all over the place, just like ours can be from time to time. But Paul's beliefs are always the same. Paul's beliefs never waver. His circumstances can't alter his beliefs. His circumstances can certainly alter his feelings, but he doesn't base his decisions off of his feelings. He bases his decisions off of his beliefs. And he is choosing to be a man of joy. He's choosing to be a man of contentment. He's choosing to be one who rejoices in the Lord always, not because he always feels like it, but because he knows who God is, but because he knows of the power of the resurrection of Christ. And so that's my challenge to you today. That's the challenge that God gave to me today, that we don't live our life based in our feelings. We live our life based in our beliefs, based in who we know God to be. That's a sign of our own Christian maturity and growth. If we can figure out a way for us to keep our beliefs and our feelings separate, then we can certainly show some growth and some maturity in our faith and in our Christ-likeness. Because whether we feel it or not, Jesus is still alive. Whether we feel it or not, the resurrection still happened. Whether we feel it or not, God is right there with us. He started a good work in us. He has forgiven us, and He's continuing that good work in and through us. So don't base your joy, don't base your contentment off of your feelings. Base your joy and your contentment off of who you know God to be and the promises that He's made to us in His Word. Because that's the only way Paul is able to say, for to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. Not because he felt like it, but because he knew it to be true. God bless you. Have a great day.